Well, the time has come for the last of the 2018 NFL Draft Q&As. Until you realize that this one will actually be broken up into two parts and two different videos. And I may end up doing one last 2018 NFL Draft Q&A after the draft is finished. Maybe on Sunday. So, there you go. But thanks again for all of you that have participated over the past couple of months asking your questions. I've enjoyed it. I don't know about you, but I'm excited as hell for the NFL Draft starting this Thursday. Let's go ahead and get to these questions, though. Barry McCockner asks, how much does Tremaine Edmonds, only being 19, elevate his draft stock? I most certainly think it helps quite a bit, because you're talking about a guy that will be a 20-year-old rookie, so teams are looking at it in a 4 to 5 year window of when they draft him. You'd be looking at him being somewhere between 23 to 24 when you're thinking about potentially giving him the next deal, which you would hope keeps him in the fold another 3-4 years, which gets you to 26, 27, to where you would have yet another deal to where he's 30, 31 before you would potentially see a precipitous decline in his play. So I think it helps his upside along with the size, along with his athleticism. I think that youth plays a part, and I certainly understand it. Akila Crenshaw asks, which team has the highest chance of making the playoffs that didn't last year? If I went by conference, if we go NFC, I will say the Cowboys, maybe the Bears, 49ers. I'd probably rank it, if I had to go 1, 2, 3 in the NFC, I'd probably go Cowboys 1, because I feel like the Eagles will come back a little bit. I don't know what the Redskins have, and I don't know how much the Giants are going to come up. So I feel like the Cowboys, 49ers, I think Bears. I think the Bears could be a little bit of a surprise, and I don't feel like that's a homer pick. In the AFC, I look at the Chargers. If Luck comes back to health, first-year head coach, improved talent on the team, I think the Colts have a chance. Anybody else? That'd probably be it in terms of right now what I can think of, Akila. But the draft hasn't happened yet. I might have a better thought on it after the draft. John DeCarlo. Would the AFC East be interesting if all 4 teams picked rookie quarterbacks? Most certainly wouldn't hurt. It probably would have to help some, especially if 3 of them picked quarterbacks in round 1. It'd get a whole lot more interesting if the Patriots traded up into the top 10, let's say, to get a guy like Josh Rosen. Then things get really interesting. But does it get interesting from an AFC East standpoint, or does it just get interesting from a New England Patriots standpoint? But it would be interesting if all 4 teams drafted a notable rookie quarterback on the first 2 days of the draft. It absolutely would be. Still New England's playground all day long. Omer Hassa. Should Oakland try moving down, and if so, how far of a move? It depends. Like, if Rosen drops to 10, and people around the league like Rosen, some teams maybe, but they're worried Miami might take him at 11, Oakland might be in a really good spot for somebody to come leapfrog Miami and take the quarterback, take Rosen. That could be somebody like New England trading up from, let's say, 23 and 31. That could be somebody like the Cardinals trading up from 15 to 10. I think it depends on what you would get. I think it depends on how the board plays out. So, worst case scenario, stay put and take the best available defensive player, whether that be a Roquan Smith or a Vita Vea, somebody like that. If not, and the trade down package is right, I think you have to consider it. Felipe asks, thoughts on Aaron Rodgers coming out of college? Did he have any red flags on him similar to Josh Rosen? I do want to make sure I make this known, is that Aaron Rodgers was not a slam dunk can't miss prospect in that 2005 draft by any stretch of the imagination. I remember in that 2004 college season, I remember one game that Utah was playing. And actually, I think it was the bowl game, if I remember, that was against Pittsburgh, and they beat Walt Harris's team's ass, if memory serves me correctly. And I turned to Jarrell, we were at the sports bar, and I told him something to the effect of, you realize Alex Smith is going to be the number 1 pick in the draft, right? He said, what? He said, you think Alex Smith should be? I said, I didn't say should be. I said, you realize Alex Smith will be the number 1 pick in the draft, right? And I was like, I'm telling you, I promise you, I know it. he will be the number 1 pick in the draft. And he was. The knock on Rodgers was that he wasn't the biggest quarterback. At the time, he was viewed to have an adequate arm, but he did not have a special arm. He did not have incredible arm strength, and people weren't talking about it. There was also the very big matzo ball of the Jet Tedford system, specifically dating back to 2 years before. Kyle Boller was taken in the first round, and most everybody in the league by 2005 knew that Kyle Boller was a bust, and he was another Cal Tedford quarterback. So there were some concerns. I don't know that there were off-the-field concerns or this type of concern, maturity concerns, focus concerns, but there were concerns about Aaron Rodgers, and there were reasons he ultimately dropped to 24, where Green Bay swooped up and got their Hall of Famer to replace the Hall of Famer at the quarterback position. So we can look back and say it's crazy how things worked out, but back then, it played out that way for a reason. There were questions on Rodgers that as more distance and time goes by, people conveniently fail to leave out when providing the full and complete context. It's San Francisco didn't take the hometown kid in Rodgers. They took Alex Smith. Yeah, Alex Smith was also coming off of playing under Urban Meyer and leading that Utah team to an undefeated season in 2004. Like, to me, where I still feel like to this day that the team that would have given them the best run, talking about USC, who destroyed, if I remember correctly, Oklahoma, with Adrian Peterson in his freshman year, and they shut him down pretty good, wouldn't have been that Auburn team led by Jason Campbell. I felt like it was Utah, because I'm not sure that USC would have been prepared for what Urban Meyer would have had back then in 2004. Sam Walker, if you have a great O-line coach, like let's say the Bears, why would you take Quenton Nelson at number 8 and not draft somebody later and trust that they're coached up? I think that's a valid point. I think it's a fair question, especially with the depth in the interior line class in this draft. If Quenton Nelson isn't there for the Bears at 8, do you necessarily freak out? No, because you could get a guy like a Billy Price or an Austin Corbett potentially in round 2 and still have gotten a really good interior lineman. I completely understand your assessment. That said, if Quenton Nelson is there at number 8, he's the number 1 player on the draft board. You have to stay true to your draft board. Because if you take the guy with Pro Bowl talent, a great offensive line coach, especially one that he worked with in college at Notre Dame, could help him become a Hall of Famer. So I completely get the logic, but the whole thing about best player available and staying true to your board, if Nelson's there at 8, he is, period, the best player in the draft. The Chicago Bears must take him, even though I get the logic of what you were saying. LaParis Jones, can Quinton Flowers play quarterback in the NFL? I don't believe so, and I don't feel like he's going to be given a chance. Adam O'Malley, will the Green Bay Packers take Marcus Davenport or Harold Landry and wait to draft a cornerback later? It's certainly possible. I think it's going to be interesting because this is not a Ted Thompson-run draft room. We're going to find out what the new general manager believes in, what his philosophy is, because we don't know yet. The Green Bay Packers at 14 have been a really hard team for me to figure out, because they could do a Ted Thompson-like thing and draft another big corner, or they could just sit there and draft somebody like a Landry or a Davenport, or they could draft an offensive tackle like Colton Miller or Mike McGlinchey, or they could potentially draft a wide receiver. We don't know. I don't know that we know at this point what the hell Green Bay is going to do. I would assume it's on the defensive side of the ball, but time will tell. Jakob Flavor, are people who are saying the Browns should take Saquon Barkley number 1 overall being ridiculous? No, if they feel like Saquon Barkley is the number 1 player, I understand it. There are certain salary cap factors to throw in there. Be like, you get to the 4th and 5th year of Saquon Barkley as a running back, and the value that you're going to have to attach to him, does it really make sense financially? Maybe, maybe not. Also, it's kind of cowardly to take the running back at number 1, who I don't quite view in the same light as an Ezekiel Elliott, and punt on the chance to take the quarterback number 1. But I don't think people are being ridiculous saying they should take him number 1. I just don't happen to agree. Big difference. Brino Jorge, can the Bears get a 3rd-round pick trading back somewhere into the range of 11 to 20? And if so, should they? Like, I'll put it this way. If Quenton Nelson's gone, to me the Bears are desperately trying to peel back out of that spot. Boy, oh boy, would I love for them to be able to get New England's picks at 23 and 31 in round 1. Which it would take at least that for the Patriots to move all the way up to number 8. Could they potentially peel back to where Miami is at 11, and that's where they get the third-round pick and potentially still be able to get a guy like Denzel Ward? Yes. Is that a more realistic scenario? Perhaps. Either Miami or Buffalo. They would get your third-round pick. You might be able to get a third or fourth-rounder next year as well, because knowing one of those teams, two teams trading up to 8, are going to be doing it for a quarterback, so you can get a little more of a premium out of them. Or if an Arizona is desperate to come up from 15 to where the Bears are at 8 because maybe they love Josh Rosen, you would be able to get a second-round pick and maybe an additional pick this year, like a fourth round, and an additional pick next year. Again, because of the premium that would be attached to a team trading up because they're going to get a quarterback. So the Bears, depending on how things play out, could potentially be in a really good situation. They really could be. Dope AF Savage. Are the Bears even going to draft a wide receiver at all? I expect them to do so. I'd be incredibly thrilled if they drafted Anthony Miller from Memphis in round number 2. If not, there's day 3 talent on the board. In terms of wide receivers, I expect them to devote at least 1 pick to the position, if not 2. Jess, your perfect/ideal 3-round mock for the Chicago Bears. My perfect ideal 3-round mock would involve Quenton Nelson at number 8, because I'm trying to be realistic too. I'm not trying to say, the Bears trade back from 8 to get the Patriots' 23rd and 31st pick. I can keep dreaming. Pace is more inclined to move up than he is to peel back, especially in round 1. Quenton Nelson at 8. Round 2, some type of peel back, maybe even a big peel back, to get Jossie Jewell, the linebacker from Iowa. And then early in round 3, if he's still there, pray to God he would be, Anthony Miller from Memphis, the wide receiver. You give me Quenton Nelson, you give me Jossie Jewell, and you give me somebody like Anthony Miller, I feel really, really good about the Bears' first 2 days of the draft. Stephen Helton, who will drop out of the first round? Maurice Hurst, I think, is very possible to drop out of round 1. Rashaan Evans could have some concerns about athleticism, and that might cause him to drop out of round 1. Who else could potentially drop out of round 1? Darius Geis, because maybe some teams are concerned about, I don't even know what at this point, is getting kind of foolish and ridiculous. Calvin Ridley, maybe? Cortland Sutton, maybe? Somebody's going to drop that nobody saw coming, but maybe we should have. Those would just be a few of the candidates that I could potentially throw out there. Josh Grantham. If Harold Landry and Lorenzo Carter are there at 25, which should the Titans take? Even though I think Lorenzo Carter is a better prospect, I think Harold Landry is the better fit. I think he's the better fit for the Titans, so I would go Landry. Peter Jedra. Ever had a first-round grade on a kicker or even punter? No. I think the highest grade I had on a kicker recently was Aguayo. And yeah, how'd that go? But not a first-round grade that I can remember. And then Matt Hill's going to close us off by asking, if the Raiders want Roquan Smith, would that be a good pick? That would be a phenomenal pick. To get a 3-down impact linebacker in the second line of their defense, they need a guy like him incredibly badly. Roquan Smith at 10 for the Raiders would be a fantastic pick. Fantastic pick. And if he's there and they don't take him, then people should boo the piss out of John Gruden. So anyways, that's part 1 of the draft Q&A. Thanks again for all of you that submitted your questions. Part 2 is coming around soon, so stay tuned.